Terrific. Okay, so what is technical assistance? We're defining technical assistance, or TA for short, as assistance with Best Starts for Kids funding proposals. TA providers that Best Starts for Kids has contracted with will support community-based organizations in applying for Best Starts for Kids funds. We've contracted with experienced and equity-focused consultants to be technical assistance providers, and they're going to provide you with free, culturally responsive assistance for applicants to support their proposal development and submission of Best Starts grant applications. There is multilingual support available. Many of the TA providers speak languages other than English. So TA can come in many forms depending on the needs of your organization. So some examples of technical assistance that our Best Starts for Kids TA providers can help you with are they can help you determine if your organization or program is a good fit for a particular RFP. In other words, they can help you think through the suitability for that RFP so you don't end up putting a lot of time into an application process that may not be right for your organization. Or they, on the other hand, can assure you that, yes, you are the right fit for this RFP. Secondly, the TA providers can help guide you through the logistics of the application process. For example, they can help ensure that you have all the requirements for a completed application, and they can help you navigate our online grant application platform, which is called Zoom Grants. Thirdly, they can help you to tell your story. They can help you support you in authentically sharing stories of your success and your impact in your community. Fourth, TA providers can help you to find data to make your story and your grant application compelling. Sarah J is going to talk further about that in a few minutes. They can also help make sure that you're fully answering the questions in the application. The TA providers can review the drafts of your narrative in your proposal, and they can give you edits and feedback. So while the TA providers can give you support in many different ways, they're not going to just sit down and write your whole grant application for you. Technical assistance is not grant writing. Best Starts for Kids has several reasons why they started technical assistance back in the first levy. We strive to partner with organizations that serve and are led by their own communities. We know that community-led organizations are best positioned to design programs that will have positive impacts on children, youth, and families in our communities. Best Starts recognizes that many organizations have experienced barriers and difficulties in getting funding from government agencies like King County. So to address this, Best Starts provides TA to remove as many linguistic, cultural, or procedural barriers that we can that might prevent qualified organizations from seeking Best Starts funding. So technical assistance is a tool to break down barriers to receive county funding. It's a step towards equity in the application process. And it's there to support organizations who might not have grant writers on staff or designated development staff. So let's talk about who's eligible to get TA from Best Starts. The good news is that any community-based organization interested in applying for Best Starts funding is eligible for technical assistance. King County's focus is on providing resources and strengthening assets and capabilities of smaller community-based organizations so that they can effectively and equitably apply for Best Starts funding opportunities. But there is no specific size requirement at all to get TA. If larger organizations that have grant writers on staff, for example, have questions about the RFP, it's fine to consult with a TA provider and they will help you. But the TA providers may prioritize their time to offer more time to small community-based organizations rather than larger ones. And larger organizations with grant writers might get the answers needed from the procurement manager And the procurement manager is also called the RFP coordinator or the RFP lead. That it's the person at King County who released the RFP. That email address for that person is on the first page of the RFP. So you might get answers from them, or you might get answers you need from the frequently asked questions document, sometimes called an amendment. So we'll talk more about that very soon on an upcoming slide. Okay, how can you get it? If you're interested in getting TA, that's great. We're so happy and we really want you to access it. So we've published the names and email addresses of the TA providers on the BSK blog and on our King County webpage. I think Sarah J is going to put the blog post and webpage links in the chat. When you're ready to apply for a request for proposal, an RFP, you can contact the TA providers directly. You don't have to go through myself or Sarah J. You can just contact them directly. You'll be able to find their names and contact information in at least 3 places. The blog post and the web page that we're putting into the chat. They provide descriptions of each of the TA providers. And with each Best Starts RFP that we publish, there's a link. It's usually on page like between 4 and 8. And it talks about application assistance. And there's a link there to find the TA provider's contact information. Sometimes actually there's another even 4th way. The program manager might post the TA provider list in their Zoom Grants library. So be sure to open every document that you see in the Zoom Grants library for that particular RFP you're applying for, and read through everything posted in the Zoom Grants library. It's another little tab that says library in Zoom Grants, and there's a lot of valuable, not only the copy of the RFP, but the list of the TA providers and budget documents, things like that are sometimes posted there, depending on the RFP. So once the RFP opens, read the bios of the biographies of the TA providers, and choose the one that seems like they would be the best fit for your organization. Then reach out to the TA provider early in the application process. The application period is usually about 6 weeks long, and it's best to contact the TA provider early in that period so that they're available to help you for a long period of time. Then you contact that TA provider by email, just reach out and say, hey, I'd love some TA and I'm applying for this RFP. You should give the TA provider 24 hours to respond to you before reaching out to another TA provider. Be sure to work only with one TA provider at a time. The TA provider will schedule a time to meet with you to talk about your needs, learn more about your program. They'll thoroughly understand what you're trying to communicate. They'll probably meet by Zoom or another video method that you choose. They could talk with you by the phone or through email as well. And then they will go from there to help you develop your proposal and help you with any needs that they can help you with. If the first TA consultant that you reach out to doesn't seem like quite the right fit for your organization, you can let that provider know, and then you can reach out to a new one. Just be sure to let the first TA provider know that you're ending your engagement with them before moving on to a new TA provider. This slide is just in there to show you that this is what the blog post looks like. It explains a bit about TA, much like I'm telling you now, and there will be photos and a description of each of the TA providers, and their email address will be under their description. Okay, I mentioned the FAQ. I just wanted to mention it again. It's a document. It's usually called an FAQ, but sometimes it's also called a Q&A amendment or addendum. And it's a document that the Best Starts for Kids staff start creating as soon as they release the RFP. As soon as applicants start asking questions, Best Starts as a government agency is required to make sure that everyone gets the same answers. So the way that we ensure that everyone gets the same information is that we publicly publish the FAQ or the addendum in several different times during the application period in Zoom Grants. So as questions come in, if you email a question to the RFP coordinator or lead, that RFP lead will answer your question in the FAQ and then upload it to Zoom Grants. So be sure to read the FAQ, and a lot of the answers you have may be there. Questions that you have will have answers there. And then keep checking back to read the most recently uploaded version of the FAQ, because new versions will have new information and answers to questions. Okay, I'm going to pause here to answer any questions that might be bubbling up about technical assistance. And then when we're done with this Q&A, Sarah J will talk about data. So does anyone have any question so far that I can answer?
Georgie, we had a question that I did answer in the chat, but just wanted to make sure everybody heard in case you're not looking so much at the chat. Can this presentation be shared after the meeting? And yes, we are recording, and the recording of this, as well as the other open house sessions, will be posted on the Best Starts for Kids blog. Usually they're posted pretty soon. It could be as early as like Friday, but if not, they'll be up there next week. So you can just check bskblog.com, or no, sorry, our comms team wouldn't be happy with me. It's beststartsblog.com. And then Georgie and I will also just email everybody who registered for this session with a link to where they can find the recording when it's posted as well. The other thing I just wanted to add about working with our wonderful technical assistance consultants is that if for some reason you don't hear back from somebody, it is okay to follow up with them, to say, hey, didn't hear back with you, just want to confirm if you're available. And it's also okay to just go ahead and reach out to someone else. You know, similarly, our technical assistance providers are humans with limited hours in the day like the rest of us. So especially if you reach out, you know, towards that 3 days before a closing deadline, if you hear from someone, I'm sorry, I don't have any availability to support you, please, by all means, feel free to go ahead and reach out to different TA providers. Hopefully that's not what you will hear, but if you, again, if you don't hear back, or if somebody's like, I don't have availability to work with you right now, please go ahead and reach out to other providers. That's totally an option for you. I see a question, is TA available to orgs that have received previous funding? Would you like to answer that, Georgie?
Yes, TA is definitely available to organizations that have received previous funding. There's no reason why you shouldn't receive TA just because you've gotten previous Best Starts for Kids funding. I also wanted to mention what Sarah J, you were mentioning before. It was a good point. And what you'll see in the RFPs is that there'll be a date, like last date, that you can request TA, and that's to initiate TA. I just wanted to say that out loud, that usually it says like 5 days before the deadline, be sure to get in touch at least 5 days before the deadline with a TA provider if you want TA, because we just can't guarantee that 4, 3, 2, or 1 days before the deadline that they'll be able to help you. And so they have requested that we say 5 days. On the other hand, there are a few TA providers that don't mind at all if you initiate a TA project with them right before, you know, a few days before the deadline. So I just wanted to say that there's that caveat. And the word initiate is really important. Like if you're working with a TA provider, they will work with you all the way up to the deadline if that is what you need. So just wanted to clarify that. Are there any other questions in the chat?
Not that I see.
Okay.
If you would like to unmute, or I think if anybody's on the phone, if you want to unmute and ask a question, please feel free to do that as well.
It's nice to read all of your names and where you're, what organizations you're with.
I have a question. Hello, my name is Erlinda from St. Vincent de Paul Centro Rendu program. Hi, I have a question. When we come to the fund 6 months report that we'll have to do for BSK, is that okay to reach out the team for this kind of assistance, or it be more more like Capacity Collective or other organizations, because we get support from Capacity Collective too. And is that, or can you explain what is the difference? Because they help us with other type of assistant, like creating new intakes or ASQs, other kind of resources. But what is it? I don't know if you can explain a little bit.
Yeah, no, it's a good question.
Questions at once, but yeah,
Yeah,
thank you.
no, that's a great question. Thank you for bringing that up. That Best Starts for Kids has capacity building consultants as well. And sometimes they're the same people. Like some of our consultants that we've hired provide technical assistance that we're talking about today before people get funding. And sometimes they provide consulting help, like you're describing, data and evaluation consulting help with an organization called Capacity Collective. They provide it after you're funded by Best Starts for Kids. So that's how we keep track of it here. It confuses us too. We use the term technical assistance to mean the help that we provide before people are funded, and we use capacity building to describe the help we provide after people are funded.
That makes totally sense.
Okay,
Yeah.
so I would say the list that you see of the TA providers from on these links that Sarah J put in the chat, those are not the people to contact if you need help after you're funded with like the 6-month report. Yeah, if you need, it sounds like you're already hooked up with help with Capacity Collective, but if you needed other types of help as a currently funded BSK partner, you could reach out to myself or Sarah J and ask for capacity building help. And then we'll connect you.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, and I put a link in the chat to a page with more information about capacity building. If you are currently funded by Best Starts for Kids, feel free to check it out. And if you're applying for funds, you should hear about this opportunity from your program manager at like your first orientation and in your paperwork. You'll probably have a lot to take in and get going with at those meetings. But yeah, keep in mind that it will be available if you are funded.
And it's a good thing to know about when you're applying too. There's a little paragraph about it in the RFP, usually right under application assistance. We talk a little bit about capacity building and how Best Starts for Kids currently funded organizations can get capacity building. And it's just a good thing to keep in mind that if you need and want some consultant help, that's available to currently funded organizations.
All right, well, definitely if more questions come to mind, please go ahead and put them in the chat, and we'll also have more time for Q&A afterwards. I know you may need to leave at 12:30, but Georgie and I think will be available to hang out for a few more minutes and happy to talk through any more questions then as well. But before we get to that, I'm going to talk for a few minutes about data and evaluation as far as what might be helpful to know during the proposal process. The Best Starts for Kids data and evaluation team does have these 3 guiding principles: partnership, collaboration, and accessibility, that we hope you'll see reflected in our work together. Next slide, Georgie. Thank you so much. So I'll show you a couple places that you can look if you want to find data that might be relevant to your proposal. But I really want to focus before looking at that, the point of the proposal is not to cram in as much data as you can. Think about telling your story. And data might be a great way to communicate some aspects of the pitch that you want to make in your proposal. But really think about, what is the goal of this RFP? What is the goal of my program? And look at those criteria that are listed out in the RFP, because that's how reviewers will evaluate your proposal. And you won't see in there, they included some data. So you don't need to worry about data for data's sake. And if you want to find some data help inform your proposal, I hope that what I'm about to share will be helpful, but it's also a great thing to ask for help with technical assistance on as well. They can help you navigate these resources or figure out what you might want to look for or how to incorporate it into your proposal. So really think about the story that you want to tell. And then I'll talk now about a couple places you can look for data that can help with that. First of all, when we say data, especially in Best Starts for Kids, we mean data in a really big picture way. So that definitely includes numbers. That's usually the first thing that pops into folks' heads when they hear the word data. And for sure we mean numbers, but it could be geographic data like maps. It could be narrative data like quotes and stories from members of your organization or clients or program participants. And it could also be pictures. Of course, if you do share anything that comes from a client or a participant, keep in mind that they should have the opportunity to say if they're comfortable sharing their story and how they want it to be shared. Next slide. I see a question in the chat. Sorry if I missed it earlier. What are the specific criteria to apply? Eligibility. Each RFP will have specific eligibility criteria listed. So they can be a little bit different sometimes as far as, nonprofits, or can it be a for-profit organization, partnerships, that kind of thing. But each RFP will have specific eligibility criteria listed. And if you look at those and they're not clear to you, that's another great question to reach out and connect with a technical assistance provider about. And you can also submit questions, like Georgie said, like to the FAQs for that specific RFP. All right, so looking a little bit at data sources, we have a bunch of data that King County shares online. Some of them are specific to Best Starts for Kids, like our Best Starts for Kids indicators measures things in King County that reflect the health and well-being of pregnant people, children, and their families. So that could be anything from like breastfeeding to quality childcare access to like high school graduation rates, all kinds of different data points related to children, youth, and families. But it's not the only source of data. You can find more on Communities Count. That's a website that's a little bit more user-friendly than some of the King County government websites, and it also has written narrative. If you think of yourself as maybe more of a words person than a numbers person, Communities Count could be a great place to start. And as you know, there's tons more data out there at the state and national level, as well as what we locally have specific to King County. And finally, I always encourage folks to think about your own organization's data. You might have the most compelling data to show who you serve, how your staff reflects the communities that you serve, the success that your clients or participants experience. Some of the most compelling data might not be what we have, but might be what you have. So keep in mind, we value different kinds of data, including stories. Some RFPs will have some data sources listed that you can use. And when we do have those included in an RFP, it's really meant to eliminate extra work looking around for data on your side, not to dictate the data that you have to use. It's just an option that's there for you. And again, connect with a TA provider if you have any questions about this. When we wrap up the Q&A, or when we go into Q&A, I can also do a demonstration of looking through the Best Starts for Kids Indicators website or any of our different data resources here at King County to just kind of give you a little tour, show you how to navigate some of these dashboards. Some people like them and find them easy to use. A lot of people find them a little bit less than intuitive to use. So if you're curious, then we can definitely take a look at the Best Starts for Kids dashboards together. And then again, let's see, Georgie put in the chat, feel free to reach out to a TA consultant to ask questions about eligibility for an RFP that you're curious about. And they can definitely help. And if they don't have the answers, they know whose door to knock on at King County to make sure that we clarify it, not just for you, but for everybody. Let's see. yeah, the BSK indicators, like I said, when we're done with the presentation, if you want to take a closer look, we can do that. But we have all of the data points that we share here, not just for King County, but we try to share as much detailed information as we can for different geographic areas, ages, race, ethnicity groups, and more. Yep, I see questions about getting a copy of the presentation. We can definitely share that out. Can we get to the next slide, Georgie? I think we're basically done with slides. We can do more Q&A now. Okay, wrapping up. Technical assistance consultants can help you figure out how to find data, how to use it in your application, both from us at King County as well as everything else out there in the data universe. Another thing to keep in mind, some folks ask if you need to include an evaluation plan as part of your proposal. You do not. Best Starts for Kids will partner with funded organizations to develop an evaluation plan, but that's not something you need to invest your time into before you're funded. So at the proposal stage, what you really need to focus on is just, you know, understanding that evaluation will be part of the work together. You will have to report data. Best Starts for Kids, as you probably know, is publicly funded. So it's important that we, you know, show our community what we've done with their dollars. It's part of being part of a transparent and responsive government. So, you know, when you're proposing, keep in mind you'll need to do that reporting. You might want to think about that when you think about like FTE of staff resources that you'll need to implement a program. If you think that you might want to buy software or equipment like computers to help you gather data or store it in a way that works for your organization, you know, you can think through those things as far as your budget goes, and technical assistance can help with that as well, but you don't need to include a evaluation plan. All right, I see one question from Cassandra here. First, again, just for folks who may not be reading the chat, can we get a copy of the presentation for the links? Yes, we will send that out to you today. Cassandra asks, our nonprofit received feedbacks during the debriefs that the 2021 Healthy Youth Survey data we used in our proposal is not the best source to support youth, substance use, and misuse. Some CHI data was older. Other than using national data, do you have suggestions? Specific for youth substance use, I actually don't. And there is no 2022 Healthy Youth Survey data. That survey is only conducted every other year, so it won't happen again until 2023. So Cassandra, if you want to connect offline to talk more specifically about that feedback or about just looking for data about that specific topic, I would love to connect if you're not currently working on a proposal. As you know, if it's related to a proposal that hasn't been submitted yet but is in process, there's limitations to how King County staff can support you. But yeah, thanks for including my email address there in the chat. I think you will get it in the slides and when we email you as well. I see another question. Can we hire compliance specialists for reporting compliance work, or do we need to hire internal staff to conduct reporting work? Thank you. I think that might be a good question, you know, to ask for your specific RFP. I don't know if Georgie and I have an answer to that. That would be the same for every Best Starts for Kids RFP.
And overall, Georgie? I don't think that Best Starts for Kids would feel good about, you know, making everyone hire specific compliance specialists to do reporting. You know, I think we're definitely hoping that any compliance that you have to do, the reporting, can be done by your staff that you have. Our capacity builders could help develop the ability of your staff to do your reporting. So the data and evaluation consultants or the or organizational development consultants that we have can help to develop those skills. I don't believe that you'll need to hire specific people.
Yeah, but I don't know that BSK would like forbid it. If
no,
that's what you feel
if
strongly
you
works best for you.
Right.
I think, you know, speaking from the BSK data team for our funded partners, we would love it if you feel confident, gathering, managing, and using your own data, not just to report to us, but so that you can use those numbers to, include in your communications, use them for fundraising, use them for advocacy that you might be doing. We would love it if you feel like your data is a valuable tool to you for you in service of your mission in a bigger picture way. But, that's some organizations really want that and feel close to that. And some are like, maybe next year, maybe in 5 or 10 years, and that's totally okay too. To clarify, we use a third party for grants and reporting. We focus on executing and doing the work. Like Georgie and I said, we've never heard of BSK like saying, no, you can't do that. But if that's a concern, you just might want to ask like specific to an RFP that you're applying to.
You could ask the RFP lead and describe like, here's what our situation is. Do we need to put money in our budget for this? You could ask that question of the RFP lead. The RFP coordinator, whose email address is on the very first page of the RFP. And it'll also be listed on like page 8 or so.
And again,
in
you
the
can
RFP.
reach out to a technical assistance provider and they can help figure out, make sure that question gets answered for you.
Sometimes a question comes up like this and the TA provider doesn't know the answer, but they kind of have a more direct line to the RFP lead and they can ask that question on your behalf. You have to leave. We completely understand it is 12:36. We're running over, but if anyone would like to stay, you can do so. And I think Sarah J could, do a demo of some of the data links and places to find good data if you'd like her to do that. But we completely understand if you would like to. This is the official end of our presentation to you today. So feel free to log off and thank you for coming.
Yeah, thank you so much for joining us. I hope this has been informative. I hope that if you decide to respond to an RFP or think you might respond to an RFP, that the technical assistance support is valuable to you. And I'm going to go ahead and stop recording now.